This is Anime Out of Context, a comedy review podcast hosted by a weeb of the highest order, alongside a cynical man who knows nothing about anime. Our show features spoilers, explicit language, and poor fact-checking. Neither of our hosts are experts on any topic, and none of their opinions should be taken as fact. Thank you for listening, and enjoy.
Hello and welcome to Anime Out of Context, the show where I attempt to explain the sometimes weird, sometimes wonderful, but always hilarious world of anime.
And I do a mic drop on my own sanity and well-being.
I'm Shaun Rollins.
I'm Remington Chase.
Remington. You seem a bit scared.
Yeah, well, last week got a nice break with a little special episode. Unfortunately, good things cannot last, and I've still continued to be prideful, which means I'm going to be punished even further.
It's very interesting, because the way the episodes are going up it'll be our KyoAni episode followed by the episode we recorded before the KyoAni episode.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we've got that...
Yeah, there's a weird order of things, but I've gotten a break that, for the listeners, it hasn't really happened in the way that it has. But now we're back, and I'm terrified, and it's going to hurt, because I know whatever you're about to show me is somehow worse than Sword Art Online 2 and Keijo, both of which are really fucking bad.
I mean, yeah.
So...
But you're the one who signed up for this, man. This was your doing.
I mean, was it, though? I'd argue that it's sort of the Discord fans and listeners as well as your doing.
You're the one who decided to make this trip down to hell, Dante.
I don't know, man. I don't know if it's well-deserved. I don't know if I've done wrong enough.
Well, Remington, you could have gotten out of this at any time, but you had to be a bit of a stubborn dick.
That is what I am known for, being a stubborn dick and having a very wanton disregard for any sense of self-preservation.
And the fact that I had to find something that was just, you know, a step worse than Sword Art Online took me a minute, I'll be honest.
Yeah, because at this point, it's starting to be a limited amount. There's endless amount of anime that are in the abyss that are terrible, but they're starting to be limited when you say, okay, but worse than Sword Art.
Well, not necessarily. It's more of a matter of finding one that's just, you know, kind of a gradual shift, because I've got some things later down the line, depending on how far you go into this, that will hurt you.
Well, we shall certainly see how far down into this rabbit hole I go, and because
quite frankly, Rem, I think you're gonna cave this time.
Oh, you think this is the one?
Yeah, because if you don't cave this time, next time is gonna be rough.
Oh God.
And I don't want to put you through that, because I don't want to put myself through that.
Oh no.
I mean, I've had a couple of things I've been saving for, you know, weeks and weeks on end, but I just didn't want to get to them because I think to myself, are they too mean?
Too mean! Too mean, he questions!
But then again, I have to do what we set out to do. I have to keep my promise, because unlike a certain someone, I keep my promises.
Hey, in my defense, insert plausible defense.
Are you hoping that our editor is just going to slap some random-ass phrase in there to hopefully make you feel better?
Either the editor or, you know, maybe it's like a choose-your-own-adventure story. The listeners can fill in the listeners can fill in whatever they find plausible and whatever they think is an adequate excuse.
I'm telling you right now, no matter what choice they choose, it leads straight to the Yeti. You're getting eaten by that Yeti, and it's not going to stop, man.
All right, so with all of that being said, Shaun, I regret to ask, what are we jumping into this week?
Well, Remington, I'm going to continue with our trend of controversy.
Okay, yep, that's always a rough start.
Yeah, because this anime has had a lot of controversy behind it.
Oh?
Especially in the anime community.
Oh, okay, maybe that is a sign of good things. If it's controversial in the anime community, maybe that's because some weebs just can't appreciate fine art.
You think this will be fine art, do you?
No, I really don't, but I have to hold on to something. frightening.
Well, fine art is a relative term, Remington. Some people view this to be a very artistic, very powerful, very impactful series. Whereas others think it's, just an utter pile of garbage and that it should not be watched by really anybody.
All right, well, 9 times out of 10, I'm in the latter camp, but let's see if this is different.
I would be amazed. Nay, I would stop the podcast right now. This would be our final episode.
If I like this anime, then everything anybody knows is wrong.
Exactly.
Oh, boy.
Everything we've culminated in this entire series would have been worth nothing because you would have been lost to the ether.
That's a lot of certainty. Okay, that's frightening.
Yeah, I figured it would be. Because I'll be honest, Rem, we're going to cover something we're going to do something that we just haven't really done on this show before.
Oh, I feel like we've done it all at this point. What could we be missing?
No. We've done so many things, but this is one thing that we definitely have never done before.
Okay.
And I'm worried about how it will go. Some people might enjoy it. Some people might find it terrifying and horrible, and why would we ever do this? But honestly, Rem, it took me a minute to find the answer to the question. What is worse than Sword Art Online? Plenty of things. But what is worse in such a way that will break Remington in such a fashion that it will still be considered a gradual step, but it will also be dramatic enough that Remington will want to stop this tomfoolery so I could go back to showing him things that I actually enjoy and want to talk about. So Remington, do you have any idea what I came up with for this kind of show?
Well, in my mind, I'm thinking maybe he did something different because with Keijo, he threw up all of the fan service and Keijo was filled with fan service. Then he threw me at a blast to the past with revisiting Sword Art Online of all things. And so I'm not sure if you would do either of those strategies. It may have some fan service and I'd be amazed if it didn't because it's anime, but I'm not sure if that's going to be the primary reason that it's bad, and I don't think that it'll be a blast from the past. Alternatively, you'll just mash those things together, and then it'll be the worst of both worlds.
That would seem like the logical conclusion. And Remington, I hate to break it to you, but you're kind of right.
Okay, well, okay, oof.
But not as dramatically as you'd think, because in my genius, I came up with the perfect solution. I went to the top of a mountain, I sat there for a solid 5 minutes because it was cold and went back down, and decided that this was the perfect time.
Okay, and what exactly is it, Shaun?
Well, Remington, the only thing worse than Sword Art Online is more Sword Art Online.
Shaun, no.
So I thought the next step would be to give you the rest of the season we just started.
Shaun, why?
It's a gradual step, and we've never done a twofer in a row before.
Why?
I am out to break you, Remington.
Oh, God damn it. What? We're just watching more?
I told you wouldn't expect it.
God damn it. In my mind, I was like, at very least, I'll get some variety, but you've even stripped that away from me. Oh, more Sword Art Online. Jesus.
We're gonna finish it up today, Rem. How do you feel?
Oh, God. So we're going to watch another 7 goddamn episodes of Sword Art Online.
Yep.
Oh,
and the best part is I don't have to use my bullshit rule because it's sequel rule.
I hate this so much. It hurts so deeply.
Yeah. I had a feeling you'd want to quit by this point, but I guess not. I figured the first Sword Art Online would have been enough for you, but oh well. We'll have to see how you feel after finishing the season, which is arguably one of the worst seasons.
It's been real rough.
Yep.
I don't fathom that it'll get better. I don't think there's gonna be a change of heart. But unfortunately, all of my hopes of any semblance of sanity rest with enjoying Sword Art Online, which, let's just face it, those are never odds that you want to take with you.
Abandon all hope, ye who enter here, Remington.
God damn you, motherfucker.
I'm just saying, this can end at any time, but unfortunately for you, you don't get the option of denying it until we're finished.
Well, we'll just have to see if this is the thing that broke me.
Yes, we will. Let's go finish the first arc of the second season of Sword Art Online. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back after finishing the entirety of the first arc of the second season of Sword Art Online. And Remington, you don't look so good.
You are a very cruel, cruel man, Shaun.
I do have to say, this wasn't entirely my idea.
To do it again. Good God.
Hey, I said a step worse than Sword Art Online.
And it's just more.
Was it not worse?
It was. It's unbearable and awful. I'm going to say a few things that I've already said and that I always say about Sword Art Online, but don't you worry. There are some special thoughts that I have about either this specific arc, how it ended, the actual plot. Now that we have seen the full plot of this arc, now I can talk about it a little bit more than I did in the first part, as well as just general Sword Art Online tendencies, which at this point, it's so unfortunate that Sword Art Online is the anime that I have watched more than any other by far.
In fact, I think it's the thing you've watched more than any other TV series.
It hurts. It hurts deep. I'm not pleased at all with that fact.
And the thing is, Remington, you could have saved yourself from this at any time, but you didn't. And before we really get into the discussion and before you make your final decision whether or not this is what truly has broken you, I'm gonna give you some highlights of what's to come if you do agree to stop.
Oh, okay. So this is, if I agree to join the Discord this week, then this is what I can have.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
First and foremost are the obvious benefits of being on the Discord.
Yep, which, from what I've heard, is quite good.
Did you know that on our Discord we have a whole channel dedicated to the various pets of the people on the Discord?
Are they adorable?
Let's see, I'm looking at some cute cats. I'm looking at an adorable boxer.
Of course.
Oh, that's like a corgi. That's adorable. Oh, multiple corgis. What is that?
I love corgis.
Shih Tzu? I don't know. More cats. Oh, there's Hermaeus. That's nice.
Oh, I love these pets.
Yeah, shame you've never been able to see them.
Oh,
yeah, that's a damn shame right there.
it is. I would agree with that.
Also, you'd be missing some lovely interactions. We actually have a couple custom emotes now, which are very interesting, I've come to find.
Oh, okay, custom emotes, of course.
I mean, some of them are just our faces with various meme filters dropped on top of them.
Jesus Christ.
Because apparently we are being used as reaction images, and I'm not sure how I feel about that yet, but that is a benefit.
Oh, perfect.
You'd have a say in how things are going on the Discord. You get to see some interesting people. People would shower you with affection and or hatred.
They would hide their pitchfork for maybe a day.
And honestly, man, there's well over 100 people on there now, and they are all interested to see what you're like in the not podcast environment.
Oh, I mean, I'm just as shitty.
You are. But they don't know that yet.
They'll learn. And it's going to be like, hey, keep showing him progressively worse anime until he joins the Discord. And then a few weeks from now, it'll be like, hey, keep showing him progressively worse anime until he leaves the Discord.
It would be quite the Ouroboros tale. I enjoy that.
Yep.
And another benefit for you joining the Discord, Remington, is as soon as you do, we get to stop watching really bad anime. In fact, I'll even show you something that's really good.
Oh, I want that more than anything right now,
In fact,
Shaun.
it would be something recommended to you to me by your girlfriend of all things.
I don't trust that anymore. I don't trust my girlfriend.
No?
She has terrible taste in anime.
Oof.
She loves JoJo, for God's sake. She has a bunch of different like edgy manga at her house. It's an oof from me. I don't trust her judgment.
You know who
I
else-
love her as a person, but she is a bad weeb.
You know who else loves JoJo, Remington?
What?
Everyone.
And they're all wrong.
But it is a genuinely good show, and I think you would enjoy it, as well as I might actually let you decide what to do for an episode as well.
Oh, man. All right, that's a lot of bargaining power.
It is. And
We'll see what I decide. I've yet to make a decision. Maybe through this discussion I will, but right now it is still up in the air.
And a final motivator, let's call it, is this. If you don't agree, Remington,
Oh, no.
the next anime we see gonna Don't be rough.
Oh.
And I also want to point out one more thing to you. Do you by chance know what episode number we're on right now?
I don't. No, I have no idea.
Well, Remington, we aren't on episode number 67.
Oh, okay.
What's 67 plus 2?
It's nice.
It is very nice. But you will know what will not be nice?
Oh, no.
If by that point you do not join the Discord,
oh no,
I'm gonna have to drop a ball I've been holding on to since the beginning of the podcast.
Oh no,
I don't want to do that.
Oh, that's spooky. That's spooky. Okay, oof.
I still might do something special for episode 69, but you're kind of the deciding factor on whether or not it's anything good or not.
Oh, threats and promises. Good to hear.
Now, with all of that preamble out of the way, Remington, what did you think of this completed arc of Sword Art Online? Argued by some to be one of the best arcs.
Oh, it so far is quite easily, I would argue, the worst arc of them all.
Even worse than Alfheim?
Even worse than Alfheim. It had the worst of all worlds. I don't know if it had any redeeming qualities, and I'm genuinely trying to think about it, and I'm genuinely struggling. I'm not trying to be contrarian. I rarely, if ever, do. I just can't find any joy from Sword Art Online.
Really? I found so much joy from this episode, Rem.
Oh, yeah, did ya?
Yeah, not from the show, don't be ridiculous, but from giving you this experience and seeing how you react to everything is just, it's sublime.
So we should probably delve into this, especially a lot of my issues come with the plot. And a lot of part one was me complaining about the ideas, the world, how it was starting to be developed. But now I can properly complain about where these ideas actually went to. And oh boy, they went bad directions.
Really? So Rem, give me a refresher. What were your predictions as to how you thought the story was gonna go?
Well, one of my very, very big predictions, one of my main predictions was that there's a sort of just like nice guy best friend character who knows what his name is. I don't give a shit.
This is the second time we've forgotten his name.
We forgot it in part one. We couldn't remember.
We forgot it in the first episode we did of this arc.
Yeah, and still we cannot remember, even though we have now seen him for hours on end. My prediction was that Mr. Friendzone was going to be a bad guy, and that quite possibly he was even going to be Death Gun himself. I had a few other predictions. I'm not sure how many of them actually were recorded and how many weren't, but needless to say, I think for all of the predictions I had, including just the ones as we were watching, I may have gotten like one or two wrong. It was wildly predictable. There was no strong, interesting, clever twist in the entire thing. All of it was so obvious in the way that it was going to be delivered, and there were no surprises other than just how terrible and shitty it ended up being, which it continuously surprises me by. Kyoji. Okay, good old Kyoji. So, Kyoji, also known as Mr. Friendzone.
Yes, as you will probably continue to call him because fuck, we'll forget his name within the next minute, I think.
And he holds no plot relevance until he holds all of the plot relevance.
Which I feel like is bad writing.
Yeah, so where we finished off, they had just held the Qualifier Tournament, and don't get me wrong, I love tournament arcs. This is probably the single worst tournament arc that we have ever seen because it just wasn't one. There's no way I can get invested into your product if you just say, okay, yeah, everyone has been competing for years. These are the best players in the entire world in this huge game, and they're immediately overtaken by only the two main characters because they are the only ones that matter. And Shaun, there are 3.5 people who are good at Gun Gale Online at all.
Okay.
At all. And this is not hyperbole. This is not exaggeration. This is how it is pointed out in the game. So, Kirito, obviously.
Right.
His new little harem girl. Then we have Spooky Dookie Death Gun.
Okay.
And then the half we're told he's amazing is just the best player. Who knows what his name was? It doesn't matter.
Well, there are a couple people listed as great
No, but
players.
this one was the best, right? And
Darkwind.
Yeah, good Admiral Darkwind, which just doesn't matter because even he was just told he was super impressive. We didn't see jack shit.
You know who we did see, though?
Oh, yeah, hopefully it's the one I'm thinking of.
Pale Ryder.
Good old Pale Ryder. Pale Ryder with like 5 minutes of airtime. Let me introduce you guys to Pale Ryder if you have the fortune of not knowing what we're talking about. So while they get ready for the Battle Royale finale tournament, right, they are looking over a few names. Kirito asks his harem girl. He asks Miss Harem, hey, so are there any names that you don't recognize? Because he's trying to figure out who's Death Gun. And she's like, oh yeah, there are 3 of them in this whole tournament that I am unfamiliar with. Only 3. And let's see, there's Gunner X, there's Pale Ryder, and there's a guy named Sturbin. So already, if that is almost exactly how it is delivered, and if you can't from that delivery figure out who is Death Gun, then then me saying it may not be obvious enough, frankly.
My favorite was that she was like, well, there's this one, and then there's this one heavily tapped.
Yeah, it was like, I imagine there's like some 12-year-olds who was like, oh, it was such subtle foreshadowing, but it was so blatant. It reminded me of that moment in a god-awful anime. It was Nakaemo, the good old, like, don't fuck your sister roulette.
Yes.
Yeah, Nakaemo, where at one point he shows up and I think he says something about, like, he's an only child.
Yep.
In, like, the second episode, maybe even the first. And then there's one girl in the class who's like, her frump! And I haven't seen Nakaemo, but I'm still all of it, but I'm still very confident that is the sister. And the Sword Art Online pulled a Nakaemo, which is never a compliment and cannot be a compliment. And so it was so obvious. You know exactly who it is, but it tries to bait and switch you as if that's not the case.
But Pale Ryder could be a semblance of Death, Remington.
Yeah, see?
Gunner X, Death Gun, makes sense, doesn't it?
And so, but Pale Ryder, one of the better characters in the entire arc, and he's there for like 5 minutes.
Tops.
He shows up, he first of all has a unique design. It's not even that great of a design. It's just that all of the other character design is so piss poor.
He's like a white camo Power Ranger.
That's it. But it was one of the most memorable things in the entire show. That's terrible. That's awful. Because it's not like if he was in any other anime that he would be moderately interesting, but in Sword Art Online, he's one of the better parts. And I like to believe that Pale Ryder, this is actually a little bit of a crossover. I've mentioned one ship ever, one true ship that I've ever had, Shaun, and I want to revise it.
Oh, yeah.
The one true ship, for those who haven't consumed every single one of our episodes.
Which, why would you at this point?
It came from our My Hero Academia episode, where I argued that Nico from Love Live and Moomin Rider is my ideal ship.
Except you got the episode wrong, mate. That was One Punch Man we were talking about.
Oh, it was One Punch Man. God damn it. Heroes. Fuck.
We've only done 2 Heroes anime, and you fucked it up royally.
Both of them were fine.
Oh,
and
God.
so I would like to amend that now. Get Moomin Rider, Pale Rider. Oh, baby. Here we go.
Oh, God. They combine into the ultimate rider.
That's all I want in my life. But he immediately gets murked by Death Gun, and then Death Gun immediately knows where they are. He has this one ability that they have no idea about until they do, and then they're like, oh yes, this super rare ability, even though before they were fucking clueless about it. It's real stupid, because I've mentioned this before. Sword Art Online was created in one draft, and so anytime they came up with a new idea, instead of going back and thinking, oh, we can place this idea we just had back there so it's cohesive, they were just like, nobody'll notice. They're dumb as shit. Fuck them. And that is just not how things in the world work.
To be fair, though, Remington, you did just watch all of it.
Oh, God. Not by choice, I will emphasize. And so through the entire tournament, very quickly, even though it's like a battle royale fashion, which could be really interesting, really tense, psychological, really fascinating to see what different strategies emerge. No, within 10 minutes, it's like there are 5 people left and it's only the main people. And that's it, because they don't give a shit about anybody who doesn't want Kirito's dick. That's the only thing. Meanwhile, this whole season, they keep showing a pseudo flashback, and it's not a real real flashback to Sword Art Online, the first arc.
Because we never saw it.
We never saw it! And so it shows what happened in Sword Art Online, but once again, first draft, we can't put it back in there, so it exists now. And so they just create this idea of plot where it didn't happen. They retcon a villain, they retcon drama, they retcon just general drama and melodrama. It's terrible. And we see this so many times. I would estimate that maybe up to 15 to 20% of the total runtime of this arc is flashbacks to that flashback that we never even saw in the first arc, because they keep revisiting it again and again and again. And we see the same thing over and over again.
It's at least twice per episode by my count.
It's so obnoxious. I understand maybe your audience is young kids, but even a 10-year-old at some point would have to feel like it's getting a bit much, don't you think? It's getting a little bit patronizing. At one point, there's one episode where we kept track, and it was 5 minutes until the episode actually started. After so many flashbacks, after the intro, it took 5 minutes to actually get started. And what are you rewarded with but more Sword Art Online that frankly you didn't want in the first place?
Some people did want it though, Rem. Some people, so too many people if you ask me, but
it's so bad. Especially there's nothing original in Sword Art Online. There's nothing of quality. Every character is a trope. Every plot point is a trope. Everything is a cliche down to every line of dialogue. There wasn't a single moment where I thought how innovative, how clever, you're really pushing the boundaries, or even that you utilize that trope amazingly well. For example, Miss Little Harem, she is a tsundere, and she is exactly what you would expect for a tsundere and nothing else. That is all she exists to be. Meanwhile, Kirito, he is the White Knight, where really he's just like a disenfranchised weeb's fantasy dream, where it's like, yeah, I'm shunned by society, but in my realm, I have the power and I have the women, and that's just not a healthy way to view things.
It's also not true to the fact that in real life, he is surrounded by people who love and care for him.
Yeah, let's face it, for most people who really identify very strongly and powerfully with Kirito, I got bad news. You're not Kirito, you're Mr. Friendzone. You have misplaced who actually are.
Oh no! Oh my god, if you hadn't alienated people before, now look at what you've done. You've just called everybody one of the worst characters in anime history. Oh, if you can even call him a character.
And so it comes down, this whole tournament, it comes down and there are 4 people left, right? They've had a bit of a run-in with Death Gun and they've narrowly escaped. And now they're holed up in a cave somewhere, and it is our 2 main characters, Death Gun, and the best player of this game in the world.
Darkwind.
Good old Darkwind. Good old Darkwind Duck. And so we have my favorite anime. So those are the only 4, and they're like, well, we don't want Darkwind to die. Meanwhile, they come to a conclusion that there must be a person currently in Little Miss Harem Girl's bedroom ready to kill her, because how else could it happen, blah, blah, blah. And they are correct, but I think their detective work was terrible. I've mentioned, I think possibly on the podcast before, but certainly to you in our personal life, Shaun, that a fictional character who I hate is Sherlock Holmes. I love the idea of Sherlock Holmes, but the execution is always so terrible, because instead of actually being like, wow, here are these very subtle details that amount to this obvious conclusion, brilliantly done, it's always like, wow, here are these details that are just being introduced, this conclusion that you would not be able to adequately deduce with certainty, and of course it's always true anyway, because fuck you.
Oh man.
They definitely take that line of detective work where it's like, hey, using some scattered and circumstantial evidence, I'm going to come to a 100% certain conclusion with no doubt in my mind. And of course, they're correct.
What did Benadryl Cucumber Patch ever do to you?
He's fine. It's mostly Mr. Conan Doyle himself that gets under my nerves.
I'm sure he's just rotating madly in his grave right now. You could probably power a city with his rotations.
That's fine. In my favorite anime rivalry, which is Arthur Conan Doyle versus Houdini has my vote every day of the week. He was great. Conan Doyle bit shit.
Oh, wow.
And so do some research. You'll agree with me. And so they have bullshit detective work, but they figure out somebody has to be in her room ready to kill her, which at this point you're thinking, especially because also they can't log off. They can't, which is just not acceptable.
Yeah, no. If you're in a tournament, you just can't log off willingly. That's stupid.
That is real fucked up. Like, that is not okay. Like, no game would allow that, especially when it's inbuilt VR like it is.
Oh, but it's okay, Remington, because if your heart rate gets too high, then it'll automatically kick you out of the game.
Or if you're dehydrated. Those are the two clauses.
Yep.
That's it. If you shit yourself too bad, bucko.
Unless that shitting yourself really dehydrates you.
Or it really spooks you.
Yeah.
It just scares you. You're like, oh no! And then you're out. You're safe.
It's a deep dive into the shitty mind of Sword Art Online. It's the worst.
But even those mechanics aren't well explained, because of course they're not. Nothing is. But you'd think, well, okay, well, if they can't log out, maybe the best strategy is to suicide yourself and then call the police, who are already on this case, but for some reason not at all surveilling the actual pro players of the game who have a chance of dying. You'd think, like, send 1 or 2 officers to the houses of these pro players just to keep watch. But no, fuck that. That would ruin the plot. And with Sword Art Online, things aren't motivated by reason. They're motivated by convenience to the plot, and only the convenience to the plot.
Like, you'd think that they would just have, as soon as Kirito was like, hey, I think this is a Laughing Coffin guy, that they would have gone to every single Laughing Coffin member's house around that time just to keep surveillance on them to see what the hell's going on. But apparently, that's not in the cards.
Yeah, at one point, they imply that they could do proper research on Laughing Coffin members and could be able to search through the IP. But the company who created the game, they're based overseas, and so just too much of a hassle?
For a phone call, yeah.
Like, you can't give a phone call and say, hey, we are the government's trying to save some lives. Give me these IPs. And hopefully a little bit more elegant than that, but nonetheless, and they don't even fully explain that. It's just like, it's just hard.
Okay, fair explanation for you, Rem. They could be based in America, and America never gives anything away for free.
And of course, they wouldn't be willing to purchase the secrets because money.
Yeah.
And so they end up coming with a plan where they need to eliminate the best player in the world so that he doesn't get death gunned. And then they need to eliminate Death Gun, but first they need to figure out his username, his information, who he is, right? Which, fine, sure, whatever. I don't care. At this point, I am long tuned out. Meanwhile, it keeps emphasizing this pseudo-romance angle between Kirito and Little Miss Harem, which, I mean, Kirito is married in the game and in a committed relationship with that same girl in the show, in real life, and yet Asuna plays like no relevant, meaningful part at any point other than to remind you that she's there. In fact, multiple times they'll cut to Alfheim Online where just the old crew is there for solely like, hey, remember them? Reasons. Like literally only to say that they were there. And that's it. On the bright side, Klein doubles his screen time. So that's a bonus.
That's the only thing I ever wanted, Rem, and they gave it to me finally.
But the problem with Kirito and Little Miss Harem is there's sort of this mentality of that savior of the broken mentality that so often pieces of shit white knights have, where it's, oh, I understand you, girl, who have been broken, traumatized, abused, and everyone treats you wrong, but don't worry, I, and only I, can treat you right in this bastion of darkness that we live in. I, and only I, am responsible for saving you and improving you, and it just creates this pseudo-shitty dependency. It was a terribly toxic relationship dynamic, completely unhealthy, but on the bright side, his dick cures her PTSD, because that's how mental illness works, which also, as a side note, I could rant much more about this specific issue, but it handles mental illness in I'm going to just say a disrespectful way.
Really?
It is terrible. It is just fucked up. This isn't how things work, and the what you are condoning is both a misrepresentation of mental illness and also the ways that one should handle mental illness. There are some moments that were worse than others and some moments that were sort of better than others, but overall it was a dumpster fire on that front. It was rough. Everything in this is rough because they don't understand games, they don't understand mental illness, they don't understand people. They understand one thing, Shaun, and one thing only.
And what was that, Remington?
They understand young weebs. Let me explain, Shaun.
Okay.
Because I have quite the comparison. I believe Sword Art Online, it's becoming difficult for me to believe that it was even created in good faith. And I'm willing to give enough credit to say that it was, but so often I'm wondering, it feels like a soulless cash grab where money is prioritized over any semblance of quality or enjoyment. What it felt a whole lot like is the anime equivalent of like Jake and Logan Paul.
Oh, God.
Where I'm left wondering why anybody finds enjoyment of this, but they're able, because they hit all of the right beats, they're able to clickbait, they are able to hit the tsundere, of course, they're able to hit the white knight, who's a badass, of course, they're able to hit all of the right beats to get especially this younger audience hooked, and hooked big time, so that they will worship this show. Meanwhile, those who don't understand, which at this point is the majority of people, they look and they say, how can this be so popular? I don't understand. Sword Art Online is the anime equivalent of the Paul brothers.
Fuck, they even mishandle suicide in the show as well.
Exactly! It's such a good comparison, and it's so strongly how I feel about Sword Art Online. Don't get me wrong, I think if you're 9 years old and you love Sword Art Online, it is perfect for you. It's gonna give you some real wrong ideas about how people work and relationships could work, and there are other shows that you really should watch instead, but I understand why you like it. But if you're still thinking that it has such a deep idea, great characters, great story, and you're a little bit older than that, if you are an adult and you love Sword Art Online, completely unironically, first of all, good on ya. I admire your ability to do that, but I feel like in the vast majority of the cases, you just need to stop, because it is not good, and you just need to mature out of it and get away from it, because it's just not good.
If you have I've said this multiple times on the show and I'll continue to say it, if you have a good reason as to why people should enjoy that as much as they do, or why you enjoy it as much as you do, aside from the nostalgia factor, I've gotten that argument dozens of times, and that is not a good argument for a good piece of media.
Oh yeah, no, it's still bad, you just remember it fondly, and that's it.
Then please let us know, because I would love to know. Also, side note, I'm just gonna polarize our podcast here a bit.
Perfect.
But I feel like you would agree with me on this. If you also enjoy the Paul brothers, then you could probably just stop listening right now, because we're not gonna like you very much.
We might like you, but we don't like your decisions.
Yeah.
We don't like the things you like. You have made some bold choices.
Yeah.
And unfortunately now just like half of our audience, just like a bunch of 9-year-olds, they just stopped listening.
I mean, you can like cunty people all you like. I mean, people
you like
us. But just think about the quality of the cunt. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah. And so to continue on with where the story goes, so they go and they're able to successfully stop the best player ever pretty fucking easily. It doesn't really matter. And then they're able to figure out who Death Gun is. Meanwhile, also, Asuna is coming to visit Kirito in the hospital that he's at.
Yep.
And at one point, Shaun, little Yui, who's in the digital world, right?
Yep.
So you're thinking, okay, so it won't play a super large part, but Yui can contact Asuna through Asuna's phone, which maybe that sort of makes sense if she like downloaded the Sword Art Online app or something like that. All right.
You know, just an internet connection with communication software.
Yeah, that's just attached to it. It still doesn't quite fully make sense how Yui can do that, but that's fine. Don't worry about it. But then, Shaun, at one point, Yui turns on the hospital TV and then changes it to the specific channel of Gun Gale Online. online. So Yui has digital god powers, and yet somehow can in no way influence or help Kirito. She can, which Gun Gale Online is attached to Sword Art Online. They have been linked, as we saw from just the linking of a bunch of games and worlds.
It's the source code. It's the same.
The source code is the same, so hypothetically that should be even closer and even easier for Yui than a random television that she has no connection to. But no, oh no, she can just hack into the hospital, turn on the TV, change the channel, but she can't do shit for Kirito. It was a little thing, but it was definitely a huge what the fuck.
Especially considering, if you think about it, wouldn't Yui be like a cyber terrorist's wet dream?
100%, 1,000,000%. The next arc should just be Yui gone bad, and then when you ask her what her motive is, it's like, I don't know, I just wanted to kill, I guess.
And then we get T2 with Arnie back in action. I can't wait.
Yeah, it'll be perfect. So
Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
Okay. Boom, we're copyrighted with that amazing rendition.
I know. It was so spot on.
So eventually they are able to kill Death Gun in the game, right? And figure out his name, blah, 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 blah. And then it's like, okay, so maybe they've been hyping up this fight between Kirito and Little Miss Harem for the entire arc up till now. So maybe now finally we'll see them battle. No, of course not. Instead, what happens, apparently, if both characters die at the exact same time and they're the final ones, then they both win. Wow. So first of all, it was bad when Hunger Games did it, but at least they tried to pretend there was a motivation, and still a bunch of people were disappointed. Now, why don't you make an alliance of like 8 people, and then all of you just agree to grenade yourselves at the very end? Like, you could just make alliances, then you could all win, and it would all get the prizes, and it would all just be as stupid as it is now, because it was just another cop-out, because Sword Art Online, it can't make strong, bold, or interesting decisions. Rather, it has to go with the happiest, cookie-cutterist bullshit that it can even muster. And so, congrats, they both win. And then Little Miss Harem, she wakes up and she's so terrified that somebody's gonna be in her room, ready to kill her.
Not to cut you off, Rem, but I just realized something.
Oh boy, what'd you realize?
So, Hunger Games came out in 2008, and Phantom Bullet was released in 2010.
Oh my, see, I was gonna try my damnedest to give them a little bit of credit. I wasn't gonna say that they took it from Hunger Games, because I didn't know the exact years, but at this point, come the fuck on. You've still, not even the good part of Hunger Games. You've like heard about Hunger Games, and you were like, okay, and that was it. And so Little Miss Harem, she wakes up and she's real worried that there's gonna be like a killer in her bedroom, which is an understandable fear, but no one is there. She checks all over, and then she gets a knock on the door, and she's expecting Kirito because she finally told Kirito like her real name, where she lived, blah, 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 and to visit her immediately. And so then knock on the door, but it's not Kirito. Instead, it's the other White Knight. It's Mr. Friendzone.
With the tiny pecker.
Yep, with a real tiny pecker, unlike Kirito's huge schlong.
He just flings it over his shoulder when he's not using it.
I like to think that it is his sword, and that's why it's such a good weapon. You see, everyone else, it's true, the sword and the plasma sword, they're terrible weapons in the game, but Kirito's schlong, unbeatable.
It's why he always reaches behind his back whenever he wants to sheath his sword, because that's just where his schlong usually is hanging out.
Yep. So Mr. Friendzone then turns from like completely irrelevant character, genuinely like maybe 8 lines of dialogue in the entire show so far, to super rapey, creepy dude who, as it turns out, he's Death Gun, or at least one of them. Him, his brother, and the third person, they were all Death Gun. So supposed to be like the biggest, most shocking twist, and of course, no, it was not at all a twist, and it wasn't a twist to me, and I do not believe that I am that observant or intelligent, so I don't think it's just that like, oh, I was smart enough to catch it real early on. No, it's just a bad twist that's both obvious and nonsensical.
You know what makes it even worse, Remington?
What?
You find out who Death Gun is in the first episode because of the fucking amazing opening to the series.
Which I pointed out, and I felt like it was relatively obvious.
I didn't want to say anything because you nailed it on the head, man. It literally cuts from Death Gun to the guy and then to the other big twist of Death Gun actually being 3 people.
I imagine so many people are like, wow, looking back, they're like, wow, the opening has such great subtle foreshadowing. No, it doesn't. It's just bad. And so he gets like really, really, really rapey in a totally not okay way because it's
Is there an okay way to be rapey, Rem?
If you did so with like some awareness of what the fuck you were doing, there are shows that can do rape in an acceptable or interesting to the story manner.
Okay, so the concept of rape then. That's what you need to say, Rem. You can't just say there's some situation where rape is all right. No, you can't say that.
In narratives.
In narratives. Conceptually. You have to be specific with this shit. We do not want to get flagged for any kind of bad shit.
Consent is extremely important, as I have mentioned many times.
Okay, good. Now that we've dug ourselves out of that hole.
And so, because Sword Art Online, just, Reki, let me level with you. I understand that you have some sort of rape fantasy. We've seen it, I think, at least one in every arc. At least the idea of it pop up. But maybe, Reki, maybe you could just not, because you can't do it well, Reki. And so it's real awkward, but don't worry. Kirito stops at the last minute before he has like this weird suicide pact or whatever the fuck was going on there with her. And he beats the shit out of Mr. Friendzone, just kicks his trash. But then Mr. Friendzone, he has a syringe with a bunch of, I can't remember what the exact chemical was.
Magic heart stopping chemical.
Yeah, magic heart stopping chemical that he stole from, apparently his dad works at a hospital and that's where his brother and him got it. And then he stabs it into Kirito. Now, I don't know if I mentioned it in the podcast, but Shaun, I definitely mentioned it to you that they were 100% going to do a fake out death of Kirito.
Yeah, you did mention that to me.
But they didn't do it in the game, which is what I was expecting. No, instead, they did a fake out death. They stab him with a syringe, and it's like, oh no, Kirito's gonna die. It landed right in the heart. Oh wait, no, don't worry. Do you want to know the reason that he was safe, Shaun?
What's the reason, Rem?
The reason that he was safe was because there was a single heart monitor electrode exactly where Mr. Friendzone tried to stab.
Oh yeah,
You
mean those electrodes that are only about the size of a quarter?
Yeah, and you would have thought, well, wouldn't it just like slip off and still stab him just a little bit to the left, maybe? No, don't worry. Fuck you for thinking that. And it's just a really dumb moment. A moment we also get amidst all this, we get a motive, Shaun. Because one thing you have to be wondering, what is Death Gun's motive? And as you know, Sword Art Online, tremendous with motives, especially for their villains.
Honestly, Rem, I can't even remember anymore.
Hey, and so the motive, it's very Randian, this motive. The motive is, it boils down to we like killing.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's the motive.
You're like, oh wow, why could he be doing this? I really like, it feels powerful when I kill. Brilliant, fucking masterpiece writing.
But
give him a Pulitzer, for God's sake.
But Remington, that just means that Kirito is just like them because his form of power is holding the sword and being the strongest. Doesn't that make sense? Doesn't it draw parallels between the two?
They didn't even try that hard to draw parallels, which might have been interesting if it was done well. But no, it's terrible. Though it is equal to Kirito in a lot of ways, not in the ways that they, I believe, intended. And then he goes and he meets up with the officer in charge of the case, and the officer debriefs Kirito, along with also Little Miss Harem, because apparently fuck government secrets, am I right?
Right.
And so then, one of my favorite moments, and it's completely unintentional comedy. Then he brings Little Miss Harem to his real life harem, and to the ones he knows in real life. So Asuna, the bartender dude, and Lisbeth, I don't know her real name.
Yep, you don't need to, it's fine.
Yeah, so he introduces them, and he's like, hey, Little Miss Harem, these are my friends. And I really like that he just casually addresses Asuna as just a friend, and then just doesn't correct the record. I was amused by that. It wasn't intended to be as funny as it was for me, but it was real fucking fucking funny.
Especially considering the fact that both girls looked at him a bit disapprovingly.
Yeah, like it fit very well for that narrative, even though I don't think that's what they were going for. Also, Little Miss Harem can now not only make a gun with her fingers, now she can handle a gun. She knows everything about guns. She can hold them in her real life, and it's totally fine with no consequences at all because the power of Kirito's dick is just that damn good. And we get a nice little closing. Oh, but wait, there's still a third out there somewhere. So if they feel like revisiting any of this bullshit, they can. The whole thing was bad, Shaun. Shaun, I have another comparison for you.
Okay.
Are you familiar with David Cage games? You
Yes,
got Heavy Rain, you got Detroit Become Human.
Those games that have a lot of really good ideas and really good concepts, but unfortunately, really fuck it up in the execution.
Yeah, so I feel like Sword Art Online is if David Cage tried to create Black Mirror.
Oh god.
And then just went a full 3 arcs with it. Like, that is what happened here. And initially you're like, maybe these are interesting ideas. But then just like in any David Cage video game, you're like, oh, David, stop. This is going off the rails. This doesn't make any sense anymore. None of your characters have any motivation or relevance or depth. Sword Art Online is so terrible. I believe that not only is the quality of everything cliched, unoriginal, and just boring, but I also believe that ultimately it shows a toxic view of mental health and relationships, how we should view ourselves and others. I think that it's, at the end of the day, just a very unhealthy power fantasy. And don't get me wrong, if you are the type of person who has been disenfranchised, who feels like you are at the lowest of the totem pole, that maybe you're bullied relatively often, maybe you're bullied for watching anime and for liking sword art, I understand and I can sympathize with you greatly, but the solution isn't to find some power fantasy and to wish that you could be just as powerful as the bully, no, even more powerful, and get vengeance upon all of them, being the hero of every story. No, the solution is to genuinely introspect, to try in the subtle and important ways to improve upon yourself, because I assure you, if you are in that position, you have more value, more talent, more skills, more abilities, more everything than you believe you have. You don't need the power fantasy to become a better person. You just need self-awareness, effort, and time.
But that's hard, Remington. That takes a lot of effort.
So's writing a half-decent anime, as it turns out. At least if you're fucking Reki.
I will come back in and say that Reki has apologized for all the times he's used sexual assault and how poorly he's handled things, and he has been making strides in the right direction to make stories that don't, objectify women as much, which is great. It's great. There's just one problem, Remington. They are continuing to adapt his early works, and the most recent season has the worst sexual assault scene I've seen yet.
Oh no! See, one of the problems for me is that this is like a little too culturally relevant. The fact that you had this sort of nice guy, incel, mass murderer type character, which here in America we are becoming all too familiar with, like, it's just too culturally relevant. Maybe this power fantasy just isn't the best way to go about things. Hopefully Reki can turn things around. He can start creating really good stuff, because I think there's talent. I just think it's overwhelmingly lazy how it has been done. It could be good. There are some interesting ideas that could be explored and fleshed out. There are some relationships that have potential but have been left behind. There are characters who show moments of potential and possible growth, but that's all left to the wayside. And then instead of being a good show, you're just the Paul brothers fucking David Cage, and that's not an image any of us ever wanted.
Oh God, why did you have to give it to me? And why'd you have to give it to everyone who listens to us?
Now you're all stuck with it.
Oh God, I hope Dylan just censors that. Because oh God, it's bad enough that I have to sit with that mental image, but,
It took a lot out of me this week, Shaun. Sword Art Online, it keeps getting worse, and that's astonishing that it peaked like episode 1, because it just continuously frustrates me and makes me wonder why it exists. And I understand that it has an audience, I just don't understand why it's so prominent and large. I get that it's a punching bag bad for the anime community at large, and most people, they love to hate it more than anything. And amazingly, I think it sorta deserves it, because it's not just bad, but it does almost everything wrong. And that is why it's so fun to attack and destroy. Unfortunately, I wish it could be anywhere near as fun to actually watch the goddamn thing.
I had fun.
Oh.
Not watching it. Watching you, though. That
Yeah.
was a treat.
Far, far better, I'm sure.
Like, you might hear Remington freaking out right now and think, man, this is amazing. It is nothing compared to when we're actually watching the show. Some of his observations and explosive reactions are sublime,
I don't just put on a character when we're recording. No, this is just how I respond to the media presented to me.
A good majority of them go along the lines of, hey, Shaun, why don't they just not do that? And I'm like, they could, I guess, but then we wouldn't have this show.
Which is so much, especially Sword Art Online is guilty of. It's like, why not just do the reasonable thing or any other option? And it's like, well, because then the story wouldn't exist. That's it. Because the story is so fragile that the reasonable decisions would unravel it at every corner.
Tell you what, Remington, I'm going to make you a promise right here.
Oh, let's hear it.
I'm going to go through and I'm going to read the most recent remakes of Reki's works, and I'm going to have a look, and I'm going to see how he has decided to improve on his works, and then I'm going to come back and report to you at some point, just to let you know that he is making progress. But as things stand right now, Rem, man, do I love making fun of his work, and this was just a real treat for me.
I'll say you shouldn't bully Reki, but you should tear apart his creations.
Yep, separate the author from the works, people. It's a very important thing to do. But Remington, is there anything else you'd like to add about Sword Art Online the Phantom Bullet arc before we wrap things up?
It's quite possibly one of the worst things I have ever consumed, and at very least, my only solace is the fact that most weebs agree with me.
But there are the select few.
Oh, God.
The super weebs, I like to call them. The true ones deserving of the moniker of weeb. Because weeb is still a derogatory term, Remington. It's just that we've kind of made it a mundane one in the most recent years.
Weebs have claimed it for themselves.
Yes, we have embraced the term and have internalized it. But ultimately, the true weebs, the weeaboos out there who truly believe that Japan can do no wrong.
They're the ones who actually think that Sword Art Online is good.
Yes. And that is the sad, sad truth, and I'll almost guarantee some of them listen to us.
We love you guys, but also,
you're fucking
why?
wrong. You're just so wrong. Like, it couldn't be even more wrong. I've actually gotten angry emails, assaulting me specifically, about my opinions on that anime, even though you're the one who's ripping into them more, which is amazing to me.
Well, yeah, because they know I'm going to hate Sword Art Online, but they hope that you'll like it because you're a weeb like them.
Definitely not like them, as it turns out.
So when you disagree and when you hate on something, you're going against your own people, Shaun.
Are you saying I'm making a fucking a crime against humanity, my own tribe? I'm betraying them?
Yeah, see, we're both doing the same evil deed, but you are in the group that is against that evil deed. You are with the group that holds themselves above such things. So we're both in the wrong, but at least you should know better.
Oh, God. That's not fair.
No.
Be angry at him. That's why we make the show.
Oh, don't worry, Shaun. They're very angry. Otherwise, I wouldn't be watching Sword Art Online 2 again.
Well, I will make you a promise right now, Remington. We're not going to be touching Sword Art Online for a long fucking time because I would likely kill myself as well. Because I have to rewatch it every time I do an episode on this shit, and I don't want to do that again. Especially not with the most recent season. Thankfully, the arc in between these two, not the stupid Norse arc. I wouldn't even show that to you because it's a waste of time. The Mother's Rosario arc is not the worst thing ever, but it's still pretty fucking bad.
It has Rosario in it.
Yeah.
I'm spooked.
Believe it or not, it's one of the better arcs because it doesn't focus on Kirito as much.
Oh my God, that automatically means it might be the best.
Yeah, until it starts focusing on him again.
Ah, shit.
Which, yeah, and then there's the most recent one, which is called Alicization, which started out really promising. I was like, oh, this might, no, never mind. It's just Kirito and Kirito 2, it's the worst.
Just like JoJo Season 2, it started out quite promising and then crushed my dreams.
You know what, Remington? I might just show you something bad next week for that comment alone. Whether or not you gave in. Fine. Then we have come to our final words, Remington. You hate Sword Art Online, I hate Sword Art Online. That much is apparent, but I have 2 final questions for you, Remington. Would you like to go watch some more?
No, good God, no.
Are you sure? We still have a whole...
Eventually I will, and these are some of our most popular episodes, which hurts me even more, but I hate it so deeply. Dear God, no.
We'll have a whole season and a half left, though, Rem.
Oh, God, that's so much.
Plus a spin-off.
What the? No. I don't even want to hear it. I don't want to see it.
All right. And then I have one last question. Do you give in, Remington?
Shaun, I am a broken man. 2 weeks of Sword Art Online, and then there was Keijo of all things. Like I'm hurting. I am in very bad shape, and I think my tank is hitting empty. However,
no, Rem, don't do this.
Shaun,
Rem,
I don't think I can last much longer, but I'm not giving in this week.
Oh no.
I'm almost certain that next week I'm gonna be broken because I don't have anything else left in me. I am running on pride and foolish hubris and nothing else. I'm not gonna make it past next week, Shaun, but I'm not giving in this week either.
Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. We are past the point of no return, and Remington, the next show you see will be something that you'll hardly able to even conceive, the conception of which is just going to destroy you, Rem. I'm so sorry that I have to do this, but I made a promise, and it's been suggested a couple times, and honestly, if I'm gonna break you, I'm gonna have to do it in one fell swoop. Like the headsman's axe, it's coming down in one swing. I'm so sorry for what I'm about to do, Remington, especially since I have to research the damn thing.
I wish I could defend myself, but needless to say, next week, probably getting a Discord.
Oh my God. I can't. I was hoping I wouldn't have to watch this series. I didn't want to. Well, I've lived a good life.
Oh God.
Ending the episode on episode 67 with both of us dead would probably be good enough anyways. All right.
Oh, so optimistic.
All right. I suppose that'll do it. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. If you enjoy our impending existential doom and dread, then please leave a review on whatever platform you listen on, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, or if you really want to help us grow, word of mouth is the best way to do it.
And if you would like to contact us directly, whether it is for a comment, question, feedback, recommendation, or if you want to send some adorable dog photos to our Twitter, then you can tweet us at AnimeConPod on Twitter, or you can send an email over onto animeoutofcontext@gmail.com. Please send adorable pictures. I'm gonna need it for next week.
And keep an eye on that Twitter, as we will be periodically dropping links to said Discord, as, after all, we need more people to rally against the tyranny that Rem is reigning, and honestly, I'm gonna need the emotional support after we're done with next week. But once again, thank you all so much for tuning in, and just don't fuck your sister or whatever comes next.
Da-da-da.